Anybody else have a pile of camping stuff that you've been using all summer? I'm gonna go through our pile and see what we need to put away. We've been camping basically every weekend from May until September. We were supposed to start our first hot tent trip up on the Blue Ridge Parkway, but the storm closed that, so we had to skip. So we're going to start hot tent camping pretty soon. We're pretty new at that. We're still learning, but it's been a lot of fun. But today I'm gonna go through some of the gear that we used this summer, basically look at if it held up and if I'm gonna keep using it or if I need to buy new stuff. It's not really going to be reviewing everything. I'm just kind of give you a quick overview of everything that we used, and hopefully most of it's still in good condition. I know I broke some things, but we'll go through and see what needs to get replaced for next summer and for the upcoming winter camping season. So let's get started by looking at all the things that we use to cook. So let's start with pots and pans and our kettle real quick. This is stainless steel Stanport. I got this for a birthday gift in 2015 or 16, so we've had this one for quite a while. Stainless steel, everything's working great. We've used it on the fire, you know, leaves the black ring, and we've used it on the gas stove, but all the pieces are still here. It's got nice bowls, everything's in really good shape. Stainless steel is definitely a way to go. We've kind of converted a lot of our stuff to stainless steel. The handle still works, everything's working, so we don't need to do anything to that. Next, we have this GSI Outdoors cooking set. I think it's the Pinnacle. And we really like this. It goes into this nice carrying case, and the carrying case is still in good shape. So we got this in 2020, and all of it is still good. It's not ripped, still closes. The only problem is we've lost some of the pans. At one time it had 2 pans, but it all fits in there. We have 1 pan right here, and you can see we've used it a lot, mostly on the gas stove, so the bottom doesn't really have a lot of smoke on it, but it's been pretty hot and it's probably ruined some of the protection on it. And it came with 4 plates. We only have 3 left. We put 1 through the dishwasher and it melted it, so we've moved on from that. And then we've had some extra gift cards. I purchased these Snow Peak titanium plates, and they fit in here. They're nice and light. They get really hot, so I like them, but if you're holding anything hot, you will burn yourself underneath. It also came with 8 cups, like 2 bowls, 2 cups, but we've lost 2 of them. But our family of 4, there's still enough in there. We're not gonna have to replace these yet, so we'll still use them as 4 cups. We didn't really use them as bowls too much, sometimes if we're making soup, but we've still got 4, so we're still good to go there. And we have the bowl, and like I said, the carrying bag, still in good shape. It's actually kind of rubbery on the inside. It's supposed to hold water so you can do dishes in it. We've never actually had to do that, but there's a spider. So, but it's in good shape. Everything's working. Here is our kettle. Probably put this away for the hot tent season because our hot tent stove has a water boiler on it, but we did lose the top. Not a big deal. We just fill it and pour it out, but the nice wood handle's still on here. That kind of keeps it from getting too hot, but it's always nice to have a way just to boil hot water to make hot chocolate. Our silverware is also this GSI Outdoors, which we purchased 2020 or 2021, the same time we purchased that. And this is for 4 people, but we have added to it. And so it opens up, and it's got a metal flap right here. There's got a knife right here, and you can keep everything that you need. The cutting board is still in good shape, a few scratches. We've lost some of the spoons and forks, so we've had to replace some over the years. We do keep a thermometer. We have some MSR towels that quick dry, or supposedly quick dry. They always seem to stay wet. You just kind of shove it in there. And then the parts that are still working are this. It's still nice. It's still locking, so even after 3 or 4 years, still good shape. This stuff we're still going to use all winter when we hot tent, and so this isn't going to get put away, but it works. I really like this cheese grater. It's nice and sharp. I've actually used this in my house, but I've gone over this more in other videos, so I'm not going to spend too much time. The one piece that's starting to fall apart is this egg grater right here, which we really liked having this little whip to make eggs, but it's kind of falling apart right here. But other than that, it's in pretty good shape. And the container itself, the bag, for all this extra stuff that we throw in here, it still zips and it still closes. So when stuff is still working and it keeps everything in here, it's been a good quality little bag. We don't have to replace it. I would buy it again. Now we're gonna move over to the stoves that we use and what we put on our stoves as little accessories. The main stove that we use is this Camp Chef stove, and we've had this probably 8 years now. It's still in really good shape. We're starting to get a few loose pieces on the end, it feels like, but everything is still working. It's definitely been used. It gets used every weekend. One of the things to watch out for is when you're plugging the propane into the side, sometimes it gets a little loose since we've been using it so long. But it's still in pretty good shape. This is gonna hopefully last us a few more years. If I'm looking for a stove, I found that the automatic light is absolutely amazing because you don't have to go find a lighter or anything, and it's still getting sparks even after all this time. So everything about this still works. It gets nice and hot. Both of them work. We will probably take this hot tent camping. I'm not exactly sure yet. Sometimes the propane has a little bit of trouble when it gets cold, but we don't get where it's cold enough that it really affects us too much, especially if you leave the propane tank up and down. However, there's our main camping stove, and now we'll move to our smaller camping stove that we take when we go kayaking. Now let's go through our small stove. We do some kayak camping, and this is the stove that we bring. This I've had, 10 years now, and I've never had an issue. It just works. This is an MSR. It's not very quiet at all. When you start it, it's like a jet engine, but it hasn't required any work. We only use white gas in it so far, so I haven't had to change the nozzle, use a different nozzle depending on the type of gas. But you just put it in here and you pump the fuel and light it, and it works really, really well. It has a little filter right here, maybe starting to get dirty, but I haven't had to do any maintenance on this thing. So this has lasted really well. Hopefully it should last many more years if I do the right work. I haven't actually done any maintenance on it, and it's been working so far, so maybe I should do something, but everything's been working well. So now let's look at a little accessory that we put on our stove. This is a toaster, and this is probably a 1 summer type thing or 2 summers. We bought this at the beginning of this summer. It has a little bit of trouble staying up, but it does well. This is to make bread, toast kind of things, but it works really well on here, and it basically heats from the inside, and it'll toast your bread or bagels real fast, nice and toasty. I probably get 2 years out of it. I had another one before this. I think it lasted about 2 summers. It warps, but these are pretty cheap, $10. But when this goes bad, I will buy another one because you can just make breakfast sandwiches, bagels. Definitely worth it. And the new thing that we added this year was a camp oven, so let's look at that next. One of my favorite things that we added this year was this Modern Innovations camp oven, and you just use this on the stove, and this thing was awesome. We used this probably 30 some times. I don't know if that's more or less than kind of what they would expect, but because it gets put on the hot stove, it definitely warped a little bit, but it still works. Everything still closes. The only issue is maybe this small door right here had a little bit of trouble, kind of come off the hinge, but it still works. You can get it in there like that, and then it closes. This is definitely something I would buy again, and I don't have to buy a new one now. But yeah, the front door is a little bit warped, but we'll be able to get another summer or even 2 out of this. The glass is still working. Everything on the inside works. The thermometer was never very accurate. I've talked about it in a video that I made about this, but we made cookies and brownies and muffins, cinnamon rolls, everything in this oven. But now let's move over to my Coleman lantern. Let's go over the lanterns and see how they held up this summer. I have a whole bunch of these Coleman pressurized gas lanterns. Somebody made a comment on my video after the hurricane that they had some oil lamps, and the oil lamps always work. And so even when the hurricane came, they used the oil lamp, and that was always a go-to. I didn't use them this time, but I have used them for other storms in the past or times that we've lost power. However, these worked out pretty well. I did go through a few mantles this summer. I used to have a case, and so they would be treated a little bit better, but I have a few mantles that broke because they get moved around. One of the problems with them getting moved around is that I did break the glass on this one, and that's a bummer. I really liked this one because it has this frosted globe, and it would just kind of calm the light down at night, even though it has a nice calm light anyways. But broken glass is a bummer because this is some of the original glass. All the new glass is made in China, and so this was Pyrex made in the USA. Breaking this actually makes me feel pretty bad. It might have been even from a different lamp, but I really liked this, and this is the only glass that I have that has the frosted band on it. But the lanterns still work. These are always just fun to have. And then I do have the propane one, works fine. Put some new mantles on it recently. Mantles are pretty cheap. This globe is made in Germany for Coleman, so it doesn't even say Pyrex. Having the original Pyrex glass made in the United States is nice to have. And so just kind of things that aren't made anymore, and when they break, that's when I get bummed out. But hopefully these will keep lasting these for many years. I might do a video on them, kind of about sharing how to change all the mantles, maybe some maintenance, and how they look at night. These are really cool. And so now let's look at what we use at night for sleeping. Now let's talk about what we use for sleeping. all of this stuff is in pretty good shape. The tent that we use is an MSR Habitude 4. This thing we bought a year and a half ago, well, beginning of last summer. And so we've gone through 2 summers with it, probably 60 some nights. One thing we really like about tents is rain covers that cover the entire thing. So that's one thing we looked for, and it covers the whole thing. Has little lights. We had one pole that was a little wonky, we thought, but it seems to have fixed itself. It could be a little tough to set up, but we hopefully don't need to buy a tent for a while. It's really big. This is definitely a car camping tent. This is not going to save you a lot of room. So we decided to get some pillows a few years ago. All of them are still working. These two, this is a Nemo, this is, I don't know, it says Lux pillow. We bought a whole bunch of random ones because we didn't really know what we would end up liking. This one has a removable cover so you can wash it, and has the case connected, and we ended up liking that. So these pillows, this one's pretty basic. It's kind of just air. It's not actually that comfortable. So we might not keep using this one. We bought a bunch because we didn't really know what we would like, and so we kind of were testing them out. Sleeping bags, we have the Eureka women's sleeping bag. This one's my wife's. Mine, this is another Eureka in here. My wife wanted to say that the bags that these came in, this one got all ripped up, so we have a new, just one that we bought online that we're using. And this one still works pretty well. So the bags, the sleeping bags are good. These are pretty old at this point. They're from before we even had kids. So we've been using these for quite a few years now. All right, we have one more sleeping bag real quick. This is actually our oldest kid's sleeping bag. This is a Kelty, it goes to 30 degrees. We ended up buying this in Gatlinburg because we were on a trip and we were camping and we didn't actually have a really nice sleeping bag for him because it was gonna get chilly. But we went to the store and they had this Kelty kids one. It's 30 degrees, not gonna get terribly cold. But one thing that's really cool about this one is it expands at the end. So when he gets a little bit taller, he can add a little bit more room at the end. Zippers all work. There's zippers at both ends. Everything seems to be in good shape. So the sleeping bag will expand as he needs more room. So it's a pretty cool little idea. This is the Kelty 30 degrees kids version. And then we have our sleeping mat that we really like. These are just Therm-a-Rest. Can't really go wrong with Therm-a-Rest. So far, they seem to be working pretty well. I think this red one's getting maybe a small leak because I've had to sometimes put a little bit more air into it. So maybe might have to replace this one, or we got to try to fix it. I have the little set to fix it, so we're going to try doing that. One of the kids uses this AirCore sleeping pad. We've decided that buying everything a little bit smaller is cheaper than buying a bigger car. So we've kind of been going towards smaller things. One thing we do really like, and this has held out pretty well, it's actually made my sleeping bag last longer because in the summer I didn't use the sleeping bag too much, but it's basically just a mummy liner and it's made to go inside the sleeping bag, but I use it to sleep in if I sleep in a hammock, basically enough just to keep the cool off of you at night. It's not going to get very cold where we are in the summer. But in the hot tent season, we'll definitely take our sleeping bags. These go to about 15 degrees, so they say. So we'll put those in the hot tent. Works really well. In the hot tent, we use cots. We have cots that we don't use in the summer, so those are still pretty good shape. But mostly all the stuff that we have from this summer is in pretty good shape. Now let's look at the hammocks, and we'll check out the Tentsile, which is probably my favorite thing that we own. And if it broke right now, I would buy another one. Now let's do a quick overview of the hammocks. I have some cheap Amazon hammocks. Honestly, these will get you through anything. We've used these for a couple years now. Haven't really had any problems. The kids play on them, swing them, climb on them. They work really well. There's nothing really wrong with them. So if you just need a hammock, honestly, the cheap Amazon ones work fine. I'll link to some stuff that I have. But I also have this Tentsile, and I really like these. So a few years ago, I was kind of looking online when we were camping and I found this triangle tent and I thought that looks really cool, but it costs more than my tent. So a little nervous, and we ended up getting the stimulus check. So this was 2020. We ended up buying the Trillium XL. We just got out the biggest one they had. I found like 1 or 2 YouTube videos, not even much on them. But this thing, if it broke today, this is one of the things I would buy again within 10 minutes. It better not break because it's very expensive, but you basically use these ratchet straps and you put a giant triangle hammock up between 3 trees, and I slept on it all summer. This is some of the best sleeping I get. They have a tent. I would love to someday buy one, but they're kind of expensive. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but we really, really like these. I also have just the normal hammock that they have. It has a cool mesh, and the nice thing about these is if when it rains, it doesn't hold water like these. So you have to make sure you take these down if a storm is coming. The water will go right through it. It basically feels like a trampoline. We don't jump on it, we take our shoes off. But then I did a couple years ago, I bought the cover. I'll link to some of the videos about this kind of stuff. I thought this would be really cool. It goes over top. It does work. I thought it would be waterproof, and that's just on me not reading. It's basically a parachute that you put over it. So it keeps the shade. It would probably protect from UV, so that's good. It keeps the shade out. If you get a little bit of rain, it'll protect. It has gone through some storms, but the water will go through it, and it will hold water, so it kind of stops the water a little bit. Not exactly what I thought it was when I bought it. This is just something I have to plan ahead to bring if I'm going to use it, but it takes up a lot of room. None of this stuff is really for backpack camping. This is all car camping. We do take the Tentsile when we go kayak camping because we put it on top and it can get wet, and we just like to have it to sleep on. Hammocks, all useful, all pretty good. Haven't really had any real issues of them going bad, so all these will be saved for next year. And next we have our chairs. Honestly, these are still working. I did not think they would make it through the summer. These are just the Sportneer. I bought these 4 years ago, and these things have held up. We use them a lot of different size people, kids, adults. We have 4 of them. It's got a few rips. These have held up, and these were half the cost of, I know there's like Helix. Those are way more expensive, and these are lasting just as long. All the thread is still here. We're not gonna have to buy new ones. We use these also for soccer games on weekends. So we use these for more than just camping. And I'm 6'3", so a little bit tall to be sitting down this low, but I find it to be fairly comfortable. Maybe as I get older, or if you're older, it'd be hard to get out of. I actually really like these. And my wife, they have one with a taller back. She wants to try one of those because she tried someone else's and really liked it. And so maybe that's what we'll add next summer. Are also in pretty good shape, so we're going to keep these. We're not going to pack them up because we'll use them for hot tent camping. We'll use them just on weekend trips. They might be a tad bit heavier than the more name brand ones. I've actually seen these very often now, so I would almost say they're pretty common for a name brand at this point. But yeah, sometimes buying the cheaper ones work out better. Honestly, I would just buy the cheaper one if I had to do it again, but I don't have to yet. And that was just a quick overview of the camping stuff that we used this summer. A lot of it is still in really good shape, so I don't have to throw too much away. I'm bummed about the broken lanterns, but we have some more camping coming up. We're going to do some hot tent camping. Like I said, we're pretty new at hot tent camping, and so if you have any tips or tricks, anything to teach us, we're always about learning new things. We're going to do a lot of Christmas light videos coming up because that's something I really like to do. YouTube says not to change topics, but this is still just fun for me, so I'm going to. And we'll be back to a lot of camping after Christmas, and then especially in the summers. Hopefully we'll see some new areas and try out different camping techniques. That's what we like to do as a family. We'll see you next time, and have a great evening.